Hey everyone,
Howdy.
we're Chris and Mel with Limited Mobility, Unlimited Miles, telling our story from motorcycle wreck through recovery to full-time RV living. So we're gonna just try to kind of start wrapping things up because there are a few stories we still want to tell, but mostly for the next year, we just spend recovering, trying to get as much use of our bodies back as we can. So I wanted to start with, so you remember that Jake had been, from the night of the wreck, he went and moved into our house, and then he has just been staying there. So we're like at, I want to say September, late September, maybe early October. And so he's been there since May. And Chris came home, which was wonderful, in September. He finally got released to come home. And at this point, I was pretty functional on my own. I was using a cane. I had graduated to a cane, which I still use a cane today, but I was much more dependent on it then. And I still had a bedside commode because I didn't trust myself to get up in the dark and walk to the bathroom and not fall. Like, I didn't have a lot of faith in my body. So my poor Jake, Chris comes home with a catheter, so he's helping Chris, because he has to drain his catheter bag. Chris still isn't able, he's not very mobile at this point still. And, so Jake was just doing that for him. And then every morning he would do my bedside commode for me, which it was just like, he did such a great job. But anyway, we got towards the end of September, October, I can't remember exactly. And, I felt like it was time for him to go home. Like, he needed to go back to his home, his life. And we needed to start figuring out what our life was now. And so he did. We decided when he was going to go home, keep in mind, he's been doing all the cooking, all the cleaning, all the taking care of us. I mean, to some degree. I mean, obviously there's some things we did by ourselves, like we had a shower chair and we could, give ourselves a bath or whatever, but he's been doing a lot. And so because Chris's injury with his pelvis was so much slower to heal than mine, a lot of that was now going to fall on me, which was fine, but
I was still in the wheelchair, wasn't
yeah. And so the day came and it was like, okay, Jake's gonna leave, and I don't know if I'm gonna get through this one, guys, but he's packed all his stuff up in his car, he's getting all his stuff, and he comes in to say bye, and I just burst into tears. Like, he has been such a gift to us at this point, and I just start crying because I'm scared. Once again, there's my favorite word, but I was scared. I was like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to take care of myself? How am I going to take care of Chris? How am I going to do this? And then of course he feels bad and he's like, no, Mom, I'm going to stay. I'm like, no, you have to go. You have to go. It's time for you to go. You got to get back to your life. I got to figure out how to do this, so, he did. And then, Chris and I got on to figuring out how to live our life. And, I remember one thing specifically that really bothered me. I don't know if you remember all the injuries we had, but one of the things that I had was this torn triceps tendon. And, even still at this time, which I guess was like 6 months later, maybe something. Anyway, I hardly had any grip. Like, I couldn't hold a spoon and eat with this side. So cooking was like a really big deal. It was like, how am I going to cook? How am I going to do this? And, cooking was one of kind of my love language with my kids. We'd always done Sunday dinners and I couldn't cook anymore. And I was like, am I never going to be able to cook again? That was a big deal because I was like, what do I do if I can't cook? So anyway, there was just so much emotional lifting right then for me. And Chris, I know he felt bad because he just couldn't do anything. He was just,
And I still couldn't remember. I just asked her, wasn't I still in the wheelchair? I don't remember a whole lot.
His memory is so foggy, and I don't know why it was like that for him for so long. I blame it on the UTI, which is what we're going to get into next. And I feel like I'm going to do a lot of talking in this video because
You do a lot of talking there.
you just don't remember anything. I gotta say it. But anyway, so after Jake left, Chris still has his catheter. I am done with my bedside commode. I decided I'm just gonna have to wake up enough to get to the bathroom. I'm not doing, because I couldn't empty my bedside commode and use my cane and without probably spilling piss all over myself, which I did not want to do. So I was managing, and but Chris still had a catheter, and so I didn't know a lot about pelvic injuries. Even though I'm a nurse, I've never worked in orthopedics or done anything like that. So I was kind of learning how severe it is. But like I said earlier, 50% of people that have a crushed pelvis die. And then I don't know the percentage, but a lot of people lose control of, or don't have control of their bowel and bladder anymore because all the nerves get damaged. So Chris, he was able to poo, so we didn't have to worry about that, but he was having a lot of trouble with the catheter. And like I said, he had this ongoing UTI that would just never clear up, and he was not totally with it, and which made everything harder, and for him as well as for me, because he knew he was confused, you can tell. Anyway, so we had to keep going to the urologist, and we'd go, and then they would take his catheter out, and then he had a certain amount of time, I don't remember how long it was, to see if he could pee without the catheter. And he couldn't for like the first 3 times we tried. So it was becoming a real possibility that he might not ever have control of his bladder again, and that he might have to do, straight caths, which is where you just like periodically, when you start to feel like you need to pee, you have to give yourself a catheter because you can't make yourself pee. And I know that was something Chris was really worried about. He doesn't remember it now, but he was very concerned. Like, he was just like, this cannot be my life.
We were talking about that the other day, and I don't even remember going to the urologist and trying to pee or anything like that. It's just where I was in my life at that time, I guess.
Yeah. But anyway, we eventually, I think it was the 4th time we went, but I'm not 100%, but he finally was able to pee. And it was just like, okay, the weight of the world has been lifted, because not that it's so terrible, obviously we were alive, we were somewhat healthy, we were going to be okay mentally, even though we weren't wearing helmets, so like we had a lot to be grateful for. But it would be a huge adjustment to have to go from being a completely independent man to then having to do straight casts and, not be able, it would just be a huge adjustment. And so I was just very glad we didn't have to deal with that part. Yeah, and so that happened, and then we just like literally for the next, I don't even know how long, I'll have to look up before our next video when we actually bought the camper. But at this point, we are just trying to learn how to live with our disabilities. We're both still doing PT at home. We're both trying to do exercises. We're like trying to do as much as we can. And it was just a very slow process from this point on. So we won't bore you with hearing that every week. We're going to probably wrap up this series pretty soon, maybe 1 or 2 more videos. But yeah, so that's kind of where we are. I'm very limited use of my right hand, which you'll remember is my dominant hand, on my arm, my whole arm, but I had no grip strength. And Chris is finally at the point where he's starting to learn how to use a walker. And we eventually both I get to where I can use my arm. It's not as good as it once was, but I can use it, I can hold things, I can cook, I can do all the things I want to do. And Chris gets to where he gets off the walker, gets on a cane, he's doing the best. So that's kind of where we are for probably a good year after this, just day to day.
Yeah, long time.
And I will say that, you know, I talked about Sunday dinner was so important to me. And so what my kids did for me was that before I was able to cook again, they would cook and come to the house. So we still had Sunday dinner every week, but even if I wasn't cooking it, until I was able to cook it. And, you know, we kind of gradually got into it. They would help me, and then I would cook like one thing, they would cook the rest until it got where I could do it all again. And I don't know what I would have done without my kids and Ashley and Sarah. Y'all are family too, and that's their girlfriends, wives, partners, whatever you want to call them, and because they're not married yet. But yeah, they pretty much like saved us. I don't know what we would have done. So anyway, that's it for today. You got anything to say?
She don't let me talk very much. No, I actually, this whole process, I don't remember. I remember, and I've said in previous, is I remember seeing lights getting hit, and then literally my first memories was around Christmas time, because we all done Christmas pictures together.
Yeah. And we're going to show you those pictures in our last video. We're going to show you pictures of before and those Christmas pictures, because they're very telling, and then where we are now. When I look back at those Christmas pictures, I'm like, dang, we were sick. We were just withered away to nothing. But anyway, that's it for this week. So we would love it if you guys would subscribe, like, comment, share our channel.
Check out our other channel.
Check out your other channel, A Life
Oh.
Lived.
Yeah, well, that too.
What were you talking about?
I don't know.
Anyway, so this is a limited series. Mostly our channel is about our RV travels, but I wanted everybody to have a chance to know our backstory. So like I said, 1 or 2 more videos with this and then we'll be done. But yeah, help out our channel, subscribe, like, comment, share. We'd love to engage with you and get to know you better.